So I have officially finished my first year of medical school, and through all the social events, lockdowns, assignments and exams, I feel like I've learnt quite a lot. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you my experience in medical school, all ups and downs included. Hey everyone, if you're new here, I'm Emil and I'm a second year medical student at Monash University. And with the new year starting now, I'm hoping to go through a little bit of reflection in this video and just talk about my experiences in medical school in 2021. Firstly though, I'd like to wish all of you guys a very happy new year. I hope that 2022 goes well for all of you guys and that you had a very safe and happy holiday season, spending some time with some family and friends and also taking a well-deserved break. This video will be split into three main parts. Firstly, I'll talk about my general transition from school to uni, then I'll talk about the academic aspect of medical school, and then a little bit about the social life. Now to start by talking a little bit about my general transition from school to uni, I have to say that there were a ton of positive changes that I noticed last year. The first sort of biggest thing that I noticed from everything was this feeling of independence in university. I was really used to the sort of school, really strict timetabled schedule where, you had 5 days at school and each day started at like 8:45 and you finish at like 3, and then you'd have extracurriculars and everything was sort of set out for you. But the first thing that I really noticed in uni was that that timetable was almost completely gone. And on most days, in medical school at least, you would have at most maybe 4 to 5 hours of classes, and that would be most days. And on most days, you'd have about two to 3 hours of classes at most. And as a result, if you're awake for 16 hours of the day, that would leave you with about 11 hours with which you could just do pretty much anything that you wanted. This was a really big change for me, and although you do have to spend about 2 hours extra on top of those classes, doing your lectures or your online readings and work, there still is just a huge amount of time for you to use every day. I think for this reason, I'd highly encourage anyone going into uni to pick up something that they want to do in their spare time, like a YouTube channel, for example, or any passion project that you can do to actually take up the time in the day where you would otherwise be working. The second thing I noticed with my transition from school to uni is that you just have so many more responsibilities. I think at school I was fairly lucky in that my parents did a lot of things for me. For example, they booked my doctor's appointment, they paid my school fees, they booked my dentist appointments, just random things like that you don't really think about when other people are doing it for you. But then in uni now I have to, organize my HECS debt, pay for my school fees, my uni fees, organize the car, pay for petrol, do those sorts of things. And they actually do take quite a large amount of time, and if you put them off, they'll sort of collect, and then all of a sudden you have like 10 things that you need to do that you didn't actually realize that you were putting off. I've found that it's been a really nice learning experience to get used to doing all of those things myself, because it gives me a much larger sense of independence because I know when everything's happening and what I actually need to do. The last really big change that I noticed is that I needed to work and earn money to actually go out at uni and spend money on the things that I needed. Even though at school I definitely went out quite a lot, I didn't necessarily need to work to earn the money that I needed to pay to go out because I had some money in my savings and I just take money out of my savings to pay for whatever I did because I didn't go out that much. But now in uni, I definitely have to work a bit because otherwise I just run out of money so quickly because there's so many events and so many things you go to and food that you buy out and outings that you go on with, so that you actually end up spending quite a bit of money every week, and you need to earn some sort of money and get some sort of income to at least pay for that. I'd highly recommend getting a job in uni, and you definitely have enough time to do so. Last year I worked as a tutor for a company and also as a private tutor, and then I also did some debate coaching throughout the year. And these were all really amazing jobs because they both paid well and they were also really flexible in the times that I had to work. So that was something that I really found useful and that I'd highly recommend any of you do. Another fun thing I had to do is that I turned 18, so I had to do my taxes for the first time. And that was a really interesting experience and good to learn about in general. So now to talk a little bit about the academic side of medical school, I have to say that it was a fairly mixed bag. As some context for how the academic side of things was run in medical school, all of our lectures were considered on demand, which meant that they were pre-recorded and just left online for us to watch in our own time. Most of our classes were done on Zoom due to lockdowns, and then we had a few assignments and exams at the end of each semester. I think this learning style wasn't that great for me because a lot like many people, I don't work that well online, especially since we were in lockdown for a lot of last year. And as a result, I sort of felt like I wasn't very motivated to study, and at times lectures were really hard for me to watch, and I just end up reading the lecture notes each themselves. However, I wouldn't actually say that it was too stressful because the entire year was pass grade only. And what that means is that at the end of the year, if you pass all your exams and you do all the assignments, you just pass or fail the year. And if you do everything, you'll pass, but if you don't do a hurdle assignment or something like that, which is required for you to pass, then you'll have to do that, or you'll have to sit some supplementary exams. And at the end of the day, you don't get a grade point average or a WAM. You don't get any of that. All you get on your academic transcript is just the PGO sign to say that you've passed the year. So because of that, I feel like a lot of the stress was relieved this year because there was only a requirement just to pass and there weren't much more expectations other than that. But I guess for your own sort of satisfaction, a lot of times, since you're a high scoring student at school, especially if you get into medicine, people do want to work really hard and score really highly on the tests and assignments that you do. I think something that helped me deal with stress a lot this year was this idea of not playing zero-sum games. The concept of zero-sum games is that these are games where if one person wins, the other person has to lose, and as a result, there isn't necessarily a net positive, because the positive of one person winning equals the negative of the other person losing, and as a result, there's no net positive. I think this idea of zero-sum games was really important for me to just let go of everything that I was thinking about, because it meant that I didn't anymore want to go for, first in the med cohort or top 25%, because I'd realized that if I got first, someone else wouldn't get first. And if I, for example, got in top 25%, then someone else would miss out on the top 25%. And as a result, these are all like these zero-sum games where there is no net positive. So I think from realizing that, I realized that all I could do is just do the best that I could, or try to the best of my ability to do the medical school stuff and not try to worry too much of trying to get these arbitrary milestones. The other really fun thing that we got to do this year is we had the privilege of working with cadavers. So unfortunately, due to lockdowns, we were only able to have one session, but I think it was just overall, just having that one session even was a really amazing experience to be able to work with the body donors and learn about anatomy from a human body itself. And I think that was really amazing for me. To talk a little bit about the assignments we had, I actually think we were fairly lucky in that we didn't have that many assignments, and they also had long due dates and a lot of time for us to work on them. And as a result, I really felt like the assignments itself were quite interesting, but they often didn't give me that much stress, only maybe in the 3 days beforehand where I suddenly was cramming it to do it and finish it in time. Another thing that you should look out for from school to uni is that at school, often your rubrics and your assignment details are quite clear, or they might seem clear, or your teacher can clarify them for you. But in university, the assignment details are almost always all over the place. So the rubric will tell you one thing that you need to do to get full marks, and then the assignment information sheet might tell you something completely different, and you'll have to worry about whether you're assessing the right thing or whether you're addressing the right thing in your assignment. It's definitely quite difficult at times, but there were a lot of Q&A sessions that you could attend to sort of see whether you were on the right track for each of those things. To talk a little bit specifically about the exams in medical school, I did think that our exams were fairly difficult, but there were also other factors that made them probably easier than they could have been. So we had 2 exams at the end of each semester, and all 4 of our exams were 100 multiple choice exams done online. And I found that this format made it a lot easier to answer a lot of questions, because it wasn't like a short answer question where you'd have to rack up all of that information from your brain. There'd be some answer options that would offer you some guidance on where to go. However, I have to say that they weren't easy by any means. The answer options were often kind of hard or misleading, or 2 of them would seem to be quite right. And as a result, it was kind of difficult to score really, really highly on these med exams. But I think that was really doable. And considering that it was only a pass or fail requirement, I thought that they were quite manageable to address. I think the things that made the exams difficult was that you had so much content to cover, so basically a whole semester's worth of content to cover, and not much time to do it, because after the last week of semester, you'd only have about 1, maybe 2 weeks to actually cover the content that you needed to before you had your exams. That in itself is a pretty big difference between school and uni, because in school you have like term holidays, so you'd have 10 weeks and then, a 2 to 3 week break. Whereas in uni, you have, 6 weeks of semester, then 1 week break, and then another 6 weeks of semester, and then you're finished for the semester. So the whole thing is only 12 weeks long. So as a result, your breaks between semesters are much, much longer. And also the time that you have to spend to prepare before your exams is also shorter. So the pressure does get put on a lot there as well. A really good thing about the med exams is that there were tons of practice exams from past years that we could easily do. And there were also exams from past students from the year before. And also students in our own cohort made some exams as well, which was really, really good. I think overall, looking back, my academic year was really good because I really think that that idea of not playing zero-sum games really helped me, because I didn't necessarily feel the pressure to really work hard, and instead I was able to prioritize my time to do my medical school work and then also the things that I actually really wanted to do. Now, finally, I'll talk a little bit about the social aspect of med and how I've found it so far. I think overall this year, meeting new people and making a ton of new friends has probably been one of the best experiences of university. I think in med school, it's a lot easier than in other courses to make friends, because at the start of the year, you're put into these tute groups of 20 people, and you basically do your classes with those 20 people again and again and again. So you make nice banter, you get inside jokes, and you have things to talk about with those people in those classes. And another thing that's really good is that you can find people who have the same interests as you really easily by going to clubs or societies, for example, or even just in the med cohort itself, because a lot of the people there are so intelligent and so smart and doing a lot of really cool things. I think with making friends in university, it is definitely good to have friendships with almost everyone and to be nice to everyone. But I think more important than that is just to have a small group of friends that you can rely on and talk to on like a day-to-day basis. I'd also say that you shouldn't be afraid to ask people whether you can go to things. Don't be afraid to take the first step and message someone for the first time. Don't be afraid to do those things, because that's sometimes how you can start a really good friendship. I have to say also, it's really easy to make friends when you have something to do. And this is helped a lot by the fact that there are so many events at uni. There's pretty much 2 to 3 events every week at uni, and sometimes there's even more than that. And then sometimes you have club specific events, and there's just a ton of things to do. And going to these events are a really good way to meet new people, talk to people, and make some friends. Sort of linking back to how I was talking about making money, it can be hard to balance how much you go out and how much money you make sometimes, because if you go out way too much, especially if you're eating food or eating out, it can really take up a lot of money, especially if you're spending, $10 to $20 on dinner, and then you go out for dinner a couple of times a week. That's all of a sudden, it's like $40, $50, $60. And if you don't earn the money to do that, to pay for that sort of stuff, you can actually run out of money fairly quickly. I personally also really think highly of clubs and societies. So I took part in the Monash Med Orchestra, and then towards the end of semester 2, I also went to debating a couple of times. And I thought those were all really amazing for making friends, meeting new people. And I overall think that clubs and societies are things that anyone going to uni should definitely join. My biggest message in this is, don't think that medical school will be so hard that you'll have no times for socials, because I know a lot of people do say that about medical school, but it's definitely not true. You should definitely prioritize your time in medical school. You should definitely work hard, of course, and try your best, but also make sure that you spend that time, talking to people, making new friends, because you often won't get an opportunity like this ever again. That brings me to the end of this long rambly video about my time in medical school this year. I hope you found something useful out of it, or that you got a better idea of what medical school would be like. And maybe check out my weekly email newsletter in the description box down below, because that's where I tend to talk about this sort of stuff a lot more often. As always, remember to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And thank you guys so much for watching.